Tariffs, funding cuts, DOGE. What does the business community think? This is the Issues Watch podcast. Hi, I'm Jeff Kazerman, Vice President of Government Relations at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the Issues Watch podcast. The first month of the Trump administration has been more dramatic than anything I've ever seen before. Much of it impacts the business community, including tariffs, steep cuts by the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE, restricted immigration, and much more. Today, we're going to talk with Daniel Munoz about what all this means for New Jersey businesses. Daniel, a reporter with The Record and NorthJersey.com, covers business, consumer affairs, labor, and the economy in North Jersey. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
There's been a blizzard of actions by the Trump administration impacting businesses as well as the public at large. These include proposed steep tariffs, deep personnel and spending cuts at federal agencies, some of which directly impact businesses, immigration restrictions, and more. And hovering over all of this is addressing the expiration of many key provisions in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So before we get into specific issues, since so much of this has been done through executive orders, can you give our listeners a brief summary of what an executive order is?
Well, an executive order is basically a mandate from the chief executive, in this case, the president. It could also be the governor. I know we're talking about the president, but there's legal precedent for executive orders. It's spelled out in the Constitution. Just to give an example, I know we're talking about the Trump administration, but if you think back to the shutdowns we saw during the pandemic, those were done via executive orders, albeit with the governors of those individual states. So the chief executive has a lot of power given to them, vested to them by the Constitution, and an executive order is them acting on that power.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know that business leaders in New Jersey have concerns about some of these recent moves by the administration. So let's take them one at a time. Let's begin with the tariffs, an issue that I know many in the business community are worried about. What are their concerns?
Well, the concerns are twofold. Either that they have to raise costs on their consumers, or if they don't raise costs, they have to absorb the costs, which means the businesses can't expand. That means they can't hire new people or adopt new technology or purchase new real estate and do things they've been wanting to do. So those are the two primary concerns for businesses when it comes to tariffs. It's a cost increase.
Right, for both consumers and them. Okay. So let's move now to immigration. There are major restrictions that they're talking about on immigration on both the unskilled and the highly educated who have hard to find skills. So does this have business leaders worried?
It does. On the one hand, being able to find talent or labor, being able to find, I guess, the jobs that people that non-immigrants might not want to do. And so immigrant workers are worried that they'll get caught up in the politics of immigration. They might not be coming to work. So businesses have trouble finding labor.
So let's talk about DOGE now, the Department of Government Efficiency. There are cuts, some that have already been made and some pending, to more than 20 government agencies. Many of these have a direct impact on the business community, such as the Department of Commerce, the Department of the Treasury, the Small Business Administration, and the SEC. What's the reaction of New Jersey's business community to these cuts?
They're concerned. Businesses rely on the federal government in all sorts of ways. So you have to think of loan guarantees and loans coming out of the Small Business Administration or the Business Action Center, that if you need capital, you go to the federal government for that support. there's a lot of public data that that the public, journalists and businesses rely on. So from the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Census Bureau, that enable businesses to make a decision that would enable them to do well. We have concerns over bird flu and the ability to respond to that. And I know the CDC and FDA have been caught up in some of the politics coming out of the White House. Um, Even things you don't think about, like we have Sandy Hook is a beach down in on the Jersey Shore, and that has National Park Service staff, and uh, if there's cuts to that, there may compromise their ability to offer services, and so that could impact tourism over the summer.
Mm.
Join the Fort Dix down in South Jersey, if they're not doing as many contracts, the businesses are not, the companies are not getting business in South Jersey, so it's very far-reaching.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess we'll be feeling a lot of that later if it stays as is. I know farmers are pretty upset, right, about so let's look at tax policy. So I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this is an area where the community is expecting some good news. Obviously, nothing has happened in that area yet, but can you tell us about what they're hoping for?
I think they're hoping for a looser tax policy. By that, I mean just lower taxes so that it frees up, I guess, from the business's point of view, it frees up capital to spend money on things that would enable them to stay profitable and expand. The tax package passed the House on February 25th, on Tuesday evening. The Senate has its own version, and Trump said he supported the House version. So there's a lot of a politicking that remains to be addressed.
Oh, okay. So they're already moving on that.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, so do you think we'll see an increase? This is important to New Jerseyans, an increase in the state and local tax or SALT deduction cap? Do you think we'll see that go up?
I think more likely we'll see it increase rather than lift it outright. I know Josh Gottheimer, the congressman, wants to get rid of the cap outright. The Trump administration and Mikey Sherrill, Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, that is, both called for raising the cap, except to varying degrees. I think Stephen Moore is Trump's chief economist. He wants a 20,000 cap rather than the 10,000 cap. Mikey Sherrill says, I want to say somewhere around $100,000 cap. So, but there does seem that there's going to be some movement. I know Tom Keene, congressman, a Republican, has been pushing for that.
Okay. Well, let's, for my own sake, I hope they move it up.
Yeah.
Are, are there any other areas where the business community is happy, pleased with what's going on?
I think less regulations, less compliance requirements from the business community's point of view would make it easier to do business if in their point of view they don't have as much red tape to deal with.
Right, right. Oh, that makes sense. So let's look for a moment at the politics of all this. We know that congressional Democrats, including the ones in New Jersey, are strongly opposed to almost all of these changes. But they are, let's face it, the minority party in both houses and have limited political influence. What I'm curious about is what about conservative Republicans who traditionally champion the business communities? Are they concerned? Are they speaking up? Are they hearing from business owners in their districts, about some of the things that we spoke about before, the tariffs and so on?
I think the concern from the business owners is just the chaos. Business owners like predictability, and with tariffs, for example, they don't know uh, if they're going to have to increase their prices by 25% if they're like a manufacturer in New Jersey and they rely on steel and aluminum. So just there's chaos and unpredictability, and you don't know what the headline is going to be one day to the next.
Right.
It's very hard to do business, and that's a big concern that we've been hearing from business owners.
Well, so do you know whether or not that's being that uncertainty is being passed along by these constituents to their members of Congress? I mean, I know you don't cover I'm just curious to see what may unfold going forward with the conservative Republican members of Congress and whether or not they start saying, well, is tariffs a good idea and so on, because they're hearing from constituents. Do you know anything about that, or have you heard anything?
I mean, I think it's all speculative at this point. I mean, I have to imagine that business owners are reaching out to members of their Congress representatives. I imagine as consumers feel the pinch, then uh, they're gonna get more vocal, and I think then we're gonna see more movement from conservatives. But I don't know anything off the top of my head.
There have already been, I think they said there was going to be a cut of at least 6,000 IRS employees, and I think they've already cut maybe, or supposed to cut at least like 700 in New Jersey. Have you heard anything about this, like what's being cut or any kind of concern by business community? Because I know our folks who went through during COVID a period where there was not enough personnel, and they would, could spend 4 days trying to get an answer, are very concerned. Do you have any insights on this? Have you heard anything?
I don't have quite the inside scoop. I mean, I have heard sort of the concerns, just that it could take longer to get a tax return, file your
Right.
taxes if you need to get on a payment plan. It could mean that bad actors who don't want to pay their taxes might, and who are better resourced, might have a better chance at getting away with doing that.
Okay. All right, Daniel, this has been a great discussion. I'm glad you were able to join us today, and we look forward to having you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening or watching. We'll be continuing this discussion during a March 13th webinar, How Federal Policy Changes Are Impacting New Jersey Businesses. And also join us for our annual broadcast on March 18th, analyzing Governor Murphy's proposed budget for New Jersey's next fiscal year. You can register for these webinars at njcpa.org/events.